Imagine you're walking down the street and someone suddenly jumps out, points a weapon at you, and yells, "Your money or your life." What do? I mean, you'd hand over your wallet in a heartbeat, right? We all would. In a life or death moment like that, it's a total no-brainer. Our lives are obviously infinitely more valuable than a few bucks. But, when we zoom out and look at how we actually live our day-to-day lives, there's this massive, glaring contradiction. If our lives are so precious, why on earth do we willingly sacrifice the finite hours of our existence for money every single day? It's kind of absurd when you really stop and think about it. And that profound question is exactly what we're unpacking in today's Explainer. We're looking at the absolute classic, Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez. Now, I want to be clear right up front. This is definitely not your standard, boring personal finance guide. We aren't going to talk about clipping coupons or skipping your morning coffee. This is a deep, philosophical, yet incredibly practical framework. It's really designed to completely rewire how you view money and honestly how you view your entire life. It's all about finding that ultimate sweet spot of both financial and psychological freedom. Here's our roadmap for this Explainer. First, we'll talk about this idea of making a dying versus life energy. Second, we're going to calculate your real hourly wage. Embrace yourself, because that one is an eye-opener. Third, we'll look at the fulfillment curve and what it actually means to have enough. Fourth, I'll give you 3 transformative questions to ask yourself before buying anything. And finally, number 5, we're going to hit the ultimate goal, the crossover point. Okay, part 1, making a die-in and life energy. Let's start by totally dismantling this modern economic myth that more is always better. For so many of us, this endless, exhausting pursuit of more just leaves us totally burnt out. We aren't making a living, we're essentially making a dying. So here's the massive paradigm shift that this whole framework rests on. Are you ready? Money is not just green paper. It's not just digits sitting on a screen in your banking app. Money is literally your life energy. It is the real, irretrievable hours of your time on this planet that you willingly trade away to get it. Think about it like this. If you make $20 an hour, that $100 pair of sneakers isn't just costing you $100. It is literally costing you 5 hours of your actual life energy. Once you actually start looking at things this way, every single purchase takes on this huge, deeply personal weight. And hey, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky theory. The co-author of the book, Joe Dominguez, was a Wall Street analyst who actually put this exact framework into practice. He rigorously tracked his life energy and his spending, and you know what happened? He achieved full financial independence and retired at the age of 31. 31. And he didn't do it by getting incredibly lucky on some wild stock market gamble. He did it just by following this exact, disciplined, step-by-step program. Which brings us to part 2, the real hourly wage. So if we're trading our life energy for money, we really need to figure out what we are actually getting paid. We all know our nominal salary, right? The big number written on your offer letter or your standard hourly rate. But here's the reality check. That number is a total illusion. The authors challenge us to calculate our real hourly wage. To do this, you take your actual take-home income, subtract all the hidden financial costs of having your job, and then divide that by the actual number of hours your job sucks out of your week. Seriously, think about the sheer volume of hidden drains on your life energy. You aren't just working a neat and tidy 40 hours a week. Think about the commute. That costs you time, gas, maybe tolls. What about the specific clothes you have to buy just for work? Or grabbing expensive takeout because you're just way too exhausted to cook after a long day? Then there's the decompression time, just sitting on the couch trying to recover. Or spending money on stress relief. I mean, how crazy is it that we literally buy expensive massages just to recover from the job that pays for the massage? When you subtract all those extra financial costs from your paycheck and add all those extra hours to your work week, your real hourly wage absolutely plummets. You might actually find out you're trading an hour of your precious life energy for practically pennies compared to what you originally thought. All right, moving on to part 3, the fulfillment curve and enough. Once we realize just how hard we're working for our life energy, we really have to scrutinize how we're spending it. It's so easy to fall into the trap of the hedonic treadmill. You know, that feeling that if I just buy a little bit more, I'll be happier? But if you actually map this out, it reveals a completely different story. Picture a graph. On the vertical axis, you have fulfillment, and on the horizontal axis, money spent. Early on, spending money brings massive spikes in fulfillment. I mean, spending money on basic survival, food, a warm place to sleep, that makes us incredibly happy, and rightly so. As we spend a bit more, we buy some comforts, maybe a few luxuries, and our fulfillment keeps going up. But then the curve does something really fascinating. It totally flattens out, and eventually it actually starts to go down. Right at the very peak of that curve is a magical word, enough. That right there is your point of absolute maximum fulfillment. Everything past that peak, the authors call that clutter. Sure, you could upgrade to a massive house, but that means a bigger mortgage, way more rooms to clean, higher taxes, and a ton more stress. So we really need to reframe frugality here. Frugality gets a bad rap, but it is not about deprivation. It's not about suffering or eating rice and beans forever. It is the ultimate liberation. It's freeing yourself from that downward slope of excess clutter that is actually actively draining your happiness. This takes us to part 4, 3 transformative questions. So how do we make sure our spending actually stays at that beautiful peak of enough? Well, we move from the philosophy into tactical, everyday action. The framework gives us 3 razor-sharp questions to ask ourselves before every single purchase. Question 1, did I receive fulfillment, satisfaction, and value in proportion to the life energy spent? Question 2, is this expenditure actually aligned with my core values and my life purpose? And question 3, how might this expenditure change if I didn't actually have to work for a living? Asking these 3 questions before you swipe your card, it's a total game changer. It turns a boring, restrictive budget into this really profound tool for self-discovery and intentional living. And finally, part 5, the crossover point. This is the ultimate destination. This is where conscious spending and smart investing finally meet. It's the visual finish line of this entire program. By consciously minimizing your spending and maximizing your income, your monthly expenses drop and your savings grow. Then you invest those savings to generate passive income. And here is the magic moment. The exact day when your rising line of passive investment income permanently crosses above your monthly expenses line. That right there is the crossover point. At that precise moment, paid work becomes a choice. It is no longer a necessity. You are free. But a quick tactical caveat here. Safely reaching this point requires a solid foundation. The authors note a really critical detail. To do this right, you need to build up a cash cushion of about 6 months' worth of living expenses. Having this liquid cash ready to go protects you from unexpected emergencies, and it smooths out your transition into financial independence, so you don't have to panic and sell off your investments at a bad time. Ultimately, the most crucial takeaway is this. Hitting that crossover point isn't about hoarding gold like a dragon or just being rich in the traditional, flashy sense. As the authors beautifully state, financial independence is an experience of freedom at a psychological level. It is about completely breaking the chains of mindless, unconscious consumption. It's about that thundering silence in your mind when you realize you never again have to count the days until payday or endure a soul-sucking job just to buy a bunch of things you don't even really need. This whole framework is really just a tool to empower you to reclaim your time and your mind. Which leaves us with one final, hopefully very inspiring thought. If you actually apply these steps, if you start trading your life energy consciously, and you eventually hit that crossover point, what will you finally do with your life energy?